And so I guess next meeting we'll have I guess we'll just have the minutes from the last meeting, since we're not technically doing minutes for this meeting, correct?
Correct. We'll still take some notes so that way everyone has that just in case to review. But yeah, we'll just have to vote on the official August minutes.
Gotcha. Does TJPDC have any housekeeping items or anything they want to go over before we jump into JAUNT?
I guess just one quick one. According to our regular schedule, our December meeting will be December 17th. We have had a couple of other committees here at TJPDC choose to move that date. So I did just want to put that out there to see if the 17th still looked like a good date for everyone, or if you felt that that was encroaching too close to the holidays and we would want to potentially move that.
Does anybody here have a conflict with that date?
I don't know yet, but I mean, the MPO tech is on the 10th already. Is it possible to move RTAC if no one's opposed? The 10th, just to kind of maintain that structure how we have it.
Yep. I'm okay with keeping the 17th. I don't have any conflicts myself at the time. I guess we'll keep the 17th then.
I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Give me a second. I was in the wrong space here. December 17th.
Alternate date could be the 10th.
Either day works for me.
Conflicts on the 17th. That should be good for that day.
Okay.
Todd, you said the 17th?
17th.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, seeing a lot of head nods, so. All right, we will keep it to our regular scheduled time for the 17th.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. Well, any other housekeeping items before we move on to JAUNT?
No, none from us.
Excellent. Thank you, Sarah. All right. I'm looking forward to, I haven't had a presentation from JAUNT in at least 2 or 3 years, so I'm looking forward to this.
Awesome. I need to share my screen, don't I?
If you can, is it giving you the option?
It is, yes.
Okay, perfect.
Alright.
I thought it would, but you never know with technology.
Good, just everyone come around like a campfire.
Sandy to sit next to me though, she's spilling her food everywhere.
I know, I just like squirted myself in the eye.
Oh, no.
I was more worried that I just got it on my sweater.
Okay.
Thanks, Joe.
There we go. Well, no, I don't get to see my nose. Hold on. Sorry for the little delay here. Okay, so everybody, my name is Jason Espy. I'm the Senior Director of Planning at JAUNT, a regional transit agency you're probably all familiar with. This is a presentation, a high-level presentation of the Rural Transit Needs Assessment that was conducted by North Dakota State University, Professor Jeremy Matson. He is going to be presenting this to the Regional Transit Partnership on December 12th, I believe, along with Mike Murphy, who's the CEO of JAUNT. I'll be there as well. But this is a sneak peek of the findings and sort of the approach that Dr. Matson used in determining sort of levels of rural demand and need and service. I'll go through a high level of the process. The document is available on JAUNT's website under the documentation tab. So if you want the full document, you want to dive into the details, I invite you to go there. Not going to spend a lot today going into the very details of the methodologies. I'm just going to give them a high level pass. Just know that Dr. Matson is a respected researcher in rural transit, and it was very helpful in putting this together for us. So the study overview really looked at, started with obviously population demographics. It looked at the transit propensity populations, which include low-income households, elderly, youth, one car or no car households, households with disabilities. And basically, like the TDP and other studies that look at transit, looking at levels of ridership per capita based on the presence of these populations, you come up with an index based on all of those, sort of a transit index. And through that lens, you can look at an area. They looked at existing transit service levels that JAUNT provides, specifically, our rural demand response, which essentially can be summed up as we do circulator services in counties, sort of within a county, and then we do links to the Charlottesville urbanized area, including Albemarle, through a link service that comes in, tends to be directional in the morning and back out in the afternoon. And so the existing service looked at the, what we're actually currently providing, and then the service gaps. He looked at what the transit agencies across the country, what they do, like a maximum level of service. If you're able to offer 7 days a week, 10-hour spans of service a day, that's sort of like the, gold star, right? That's a level 7. Level 1, probably very little, no transit. We're somewhere in the middle. We offer essentially for a lot of rural areas a lifeline service, which means that, for example, Albemarle demand response, service span is 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Can you get to your appointment? Yes. Do you have a lot of choice sometimes? No. You can get in, maybe you can't get out. And so we never strand anybody, but we do, our reservations will work with people to figure out how they can or cannot fit the time span. So anyway, waxing a little bit too much in the surface, but it looked at the difference between what we're offering and what could be offered. And they came up with recommendations by county and conclusions, which we're gonna jump to. Actually, no, we're gonna look a little bit. There's a lot of these maps. This one is total trips per capita existing fiscal year 2023. The dark brown is 0 to 0.5 trips per capita. And this is per capita of those transit dependent transit propensity populations, right? Not per capita entirely. And because that's what the demand is based on, is those populations which would tend to rely more on transit. The beige is 0.15 and up to 1, 1 to 2 is yellow, light green is 2.0 to 4, and 4 and above is the dark green. You can see the urbanized area, Charlottesville and 29 North and Crozet tend to be the highest per capita, but also there's a bunch out in Louisa. And then Greene County does have, Standardsville and Ruckersville are kind of 2 activity centers there along 33. And they have also, Greene has a history of doing its own transit. They had Greene County Transit for many, many years. And then JAUNT took that over sometime a few years ago. I don't know exactly when.
That would be an hour over.
Okay, moving on. So important to understand the service gap, because basically a lot of the analysis revolves around that. We looked at peer communities in North Carolina, I believe Wisconsin and North Dakota to look at what kind of per capita ridership they had based on the level of service was being provided, based on sort of the presence of transit dependent populations. The mobility gap is, I had notes, I don't have my notes there. So the mobility gap is the difference between, let me see if I get this right. The trips you could make. That's memorized. Second. So the mobility gap is the number of trips not taken because of a lack of access to a vehicle. And that's as per the Transit Cooperative Research Program, Report 161. Mobility gap is estimated as the difference between trip rates between households with no vehicles and those with one vehicle. Okay, so that's one methodology for looking at sort of demand. There's a couple other ridership models. Professor Matson had his own. So he looked at the mobility gap figures and their metrics, and he came up, he has his own model, which he developed in 2017, which his model estimates ridership based on population as well as service. So the number of days per week that the service is provided, how far in advance rides must be reserved, and the fare level. And based on that, it can get predicted levels of ridership for an area based on 5 days a week and based on reservations 1 day in advance, which is our current. Not all rural counties get 5 days a week. For example, Nelson gets 3, based on budget, it's based on, need. And so that comes up, at the end of the day, you're getting ridership per capita. And based on that, let me go back to presentation mode. Based on that, he established ridership targets for every locality in the service area. And those ridership targets were tiered, because you can't really 100% say, we are definitely, there's a mobility gap, there's a demand based on the number of population that needs transit. And based on what's current ridership is, there's a gap. And that gap can be met by adding more service. To meet that, it's under basically, I should rename this study, if you build it, they will come. There's a demand out there that he established, and in order to see how well we're meeting that demand, he said, there's 3 different level of goals. There's a goal, a less ambitious goal, a medium, and then a highly ambitious goal for meeting those. And I'm gonna flip through these. He established that you look at the deficit in the ridership for each goal. And there's a table after this which shows the goals numerically. But if you're gonna ramp up your service, you're gonna meet more ridership than goal 2 and then goal 3. And where you want to go all depends on how much resources we can put towards meeting unmet demand. So the current county level riderships, if you look at, these are the numbers for ridership based on the 2023 baseline. Albemarle goal 1 would be hitting at least 93,000. Goal 2 would be 117,000. Current ridership is 160. So Albemarle actually is meeting goals 1 and 2 based on those thresholds. Goal 3 would take a little, wrapped up a little bit more. You say basically you could get up to 187,000 ridership in Albemarle County alone. So the others, just take a look at the various Fluvanna, Greene, these were all based on the population per capita of transit dependent populations. And Nelson, we even looked at Western Goochland, and we'll get on that a little bit, because Goochland was included in this to look at, is there a demand out there in Goochland to come west towards Charlottesville, or is the magnetic force more towards Richmond in terms of the commuting patterns? And we'll get to that in a bit. But so here's if we're meeting the goals, you see Albemarle is meeting goals 1 and 2. All the others have room to go. Greene is also meeting 1 and 2. But could add some more. This is the deficit, ridership deficit. So in theory, for Greene to go to goal 4, expand service to capture another 11,000 riders. Again, Albemarle, expand service, you can get up to 27,000 based on his model, his demand model. Buckingham, and the others, Fluvanna, Louisa and Nelson, and Western Goochland, all have room to grow from goal, even to meet the first one, goal 1. There's a back of the envelope cost, what it would cost to get there. For Albemarle to get to goal 3, was estimated at, there was cost per rider, I forget what he came up with, $50 per ride. I forget, it's in the details, so. There's a metric, basically, he looked at the ridership and said, it costs this much to perform a ride, and then you can get a rough calculation of the operating costs to meet that demand. So basically, in order to get up to, let's see, go back here. Try which goal did he pick? I'm gonna look at Louisa, is 18. Louisa, yeah. So I think he chose just to get to goal 1 for the ones that haven't reached goal 1 yet, like Buckingham, Fluvanna, Louisa, Nelson, to get to 18 or 12. Yeah, he used goal 1 here. Albemarle, he used goal 3. Greene, I believe he used goal 3 as well. All the rest, goal 1 in order to estimate costs. So I'm going to run through the counties. Albemarle, the needs assessment, ridership goals are being met. There's room for improvement. Ridership is significantly below targets in some of the rural areas. Recommendations, extend hours of service in rural areas with goals of at least 5 days a week and 10 hours a day. So we do 5 days a week, but the 10 hours a day is the lift. Then we talked about implementing microtransit, perhaps in Prozac, which the micro transit study did estimate.
What's the current hours per day for Albemarle County?
There's a bunch of different services for Albemarle County. The rural demand, like Albemarle demand response, like not including the urban areas,
Yeah.
Albemarle priority service. Urban, Albemarle demand response is, 10 AM to 2 PM,
Okay.
5 days a week. So you'll recognize a pattern, a lot of these recommendations. Population density is low, but poverty and disability rates are high in Buckingham. Demand response service is currently not available for Buckingham. We provide their Connect commuter bus routes. Ridership levels are well below targets. The recommendations, add demand response service within the county and in the Charlottesville urban area. And I would just say, to editorialize on that, that's a long distance between here and Buckingham. That's a lot of driving. So demand response, its nature is like pick up, drop off, pick up, drop off. From the rural demand response, a lot of it is directional. We're not zipping back and forth between here and Dillwood very quickly. So, Fluvanna, again, per capita ridership levels are lowest in Fluvanna. Ridership would need to increase 7.7 times to reach the first goal. It's the largest relative gap within JAUNT service area. So recommendations, again, extend service days and hours with a goal of 5 days per week, 10 hours per day. You'll see that refrain repeated a bunch. Expand the frequency and hours of the workday link. The link is the one that goes in the morning, comes out in the afternoon to the urbanized area. I think that happens 3 days a week for Fluvanna. Expand the midday link to 5 days a week. Yeah, there it is. Greene County, per capita ridership is the highest here among all the rural areas served by JAUNT. First two ridership goals are being met. Improvements could be made for the third goal. Here, like Albemarle, reaching that third level is because their ridership is currently pretty good in Greene. Again, based on their history with it, and recommendations, implement microtransit in more densely populated areas of the county. This is, it's looking good. Basically, if you drew a large polygon around Standardsville and Ruckersville and you had 1 or 2 vehicles sort of operating, just bouncing around in there, taking people to and from places in Greene, there's a lot of internal circulation and in the Greene. Potential there for the circulator service. Extend 29 North Connect. Currently, 29 North Connect ends in Hollymead or by the airport, I think. Food Lion up there. So that would be going into Greene County. I'd have to believe, like, one of our biggest users of the Connect services are UVA employees. I have to think there's UVA employees living in Greene. Something to explore, especially with our UVA partnership. Extend circulator service to 12 hours per day, 6 days per week, as funding allows. Greene used to have some weekend service due to budgets. They no longer do. We don't operate any weekend service for the Connect routes. They're mostly commuter focused. Louisa, ridership is significantly below the first goal. So in absolute terms, the first goal is where we want to target. The gaps have found throughout the county. Largest are the eastern part of the county. So recommendations, expand Louisa link. Again, the link is the service that connects Louisa to Charlottesville urbanized Albemarle. And service into Charlottesville to 5 days a week as opposed to 3. Study options for additional services, maybe a commuter bus or flex route, connecting the town of Louisa to outlying areas. So like Zion's Crossroads does have a medical center and they're a big rural shopping destination. And so there's even some potential for, I do believe that Fluvanna actually, even though our circulator is supposed to stay within the county, that's the one exception. They'll go up to Zion because there's demand for that. There's, I think, a UVA health center there that does dialysis and other appointments. So anyway, so Louisa, again, a lot of the recommendations have the same refrain. Expand service delivery, just to meet the goals that are established, the baseline goals based on the need, based on his study. Nelson County, low population, demographics are asking for more support, with the higher percentage of older adults relatively high rates of poverty and disability. So Nelson's complicated because it has different sections. You have the Wintergreen, you have the Livingston, and sort of bifurcated by topography. And so also the demand response there is limited. We only run in the Livingston area. We currently don't do Nellisford or up into Wintergreen, although they've been talking to Cinda and others about how they can get some riders. So we'll play with that. So ridership would need to increase 3.6 times to reach even the first goal. The recommendations expand the geographic coverage of Livingston to the entire county. So right now there's limited geographic coverage, so make it bigger. So there's a geographic expansion as well as service span to 5 days a week. Currently it's, I think, 3 days a week. And again, 10 hours a day. Expand the Nelson Monday link. That's the one that comes into Charlottesville, providing demand response services to Charlottesville to 5 days with increased hours and frequency. So Goochland, there were folks that actually, we did a survey. We had stakeholder meetings. I think some of you may have been on those meetings. So we did 3 different meetings, the final presentation. Goochland was one of the counties that had the highest, most interest in the survey, came from Goochland of all the counties. So they're definitely interested in hearing what we have to say about this. So we looked at Western Goochland and then Goochland itself. So there are no transit services currently available. I think, correct me if I'm wrong about this, but GRTC in Richmond runs one bus out to somewhere in Eastern Goochland where there's like a rehab facility. But other than that, there's no transit services for Goochland. Travel tends to be oriented more towards Richmond. If you look at the commuting patterns from the LEHD on the map, yeah, there's more people in Goochland, especially, some people in Western Goochland are going to Zions, and some of them are going to Charlottesville and urban Albemarle. So the recommendations here were to prioritize improvements in the existing areas. Let's try to serve who we're serving now better, as opposed to expanding, was the recommendation. And maybe recommended to Goochland to continue exploring options for services from Richmond-based providers. The Goochland people, when they saw this at the presentation, they're like, well, we want to keep still talking to you. He's like, yeah, we'll keep talking to you. So we can close the door entirely on Goochland, but for now, the priorities are on serving our existing service area jurisdictions better. So that's it. Did I go over too much? Okay. I think that's it. Oh, another slide here. Significant unmet needs throughout this entire area. Recommendations, how can reach ridership, basically expand service into some areas either geographically or temporally. Basically, this results show the need for increased investment in this. Again, my saying, not his, is that if you provide it, they will come. The field of dreams thing. All right. And if you want to get in touch with Jeremy, that's his information, and he'll be presenting at the December 12th Regional Transit Partnership. Again, many of you will probably be that team as well.
Thank
Any
you.
questions, discussion?
Yeah, I do, but it'll probably take the rest of the time. So let's circle back another time because I got some ideas.
I have a few. One, the first column was ridership. Is that, how do you count that? Is one trip, 2 rides? So a lot of the trips are gonna be 2-way, right? I go from my house to Walmart, and Walmart back to my house.
That's 2.
Okay,
We count unlinked passenger trips is the terminology. Basically, your ride in is one trip, ride back is another trip.
right, to your point, there's not always a ride back. Sometimes it's just a one-way.
We try to accommodate people as best we can and then work with them to try to get their schedule. Sometimes it's easier to, if you're just choosing your own time because you want to go shopping, that's easy. But if you have to, work with a medical center to schedule an appointment where you're able to travel, sometimes it's more difficult. The Path Mobility Program is, they have a call center, and they're actually giving us some of the feedback that they have from their callers, which is useful. Now that I realize the job.
So in that first column is actual data from your database. The ridership is the actual ridership, it's not an estimate.
Correct.
And then the census or the mobility gap. Well, the per capita is based on per capita of people that need transit. How do we define people that need transit versus people that don't?
So, that's based on the first study, which I mentioned, they looked at, the presence of populations, primarily low income, households with a disability, households with a lot of elderly, 65 and older, young people who may not be driving or to have a car yet. And then,
Zero car, okay, zero car household.
huh?
Zero car.
Yeah, yes, thank you.
Okay.
Zero problems. I have to remember to check.
And then use trends from there to determine what the amount of rides needed are based on the population. That's how you can get the mobility gap.
Yeah, that's how you get the gap, is basically we have an existing baseline level, which is right here, you know, that column you're talking about. And then based on the analysis of the population in each county, and that population are the populations I just mentioned, ones that tend to need transit more or use transit more. And how much they use transit more is based on those peer studies that he conducted throughout his research, throughout his career, looking at places in rural areas. And the relationship between the presence of the population and the level of service being provided, and that sort of, that Venn diagram of those two things. What kind of yields of ridership they can typically expect to see from these populations. And so that's where it gets into a little bit of demand estimation.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Was there, this is just, considering the existing demographics, not like future projections for like aging, like in 10 years?
Yeah, this is based on the American Community Survey. Thank you, Cindy. No.
Well, no, because that can change, right? Like funding is kind of like, you know, you prepare for the future, so.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't know if does the census even project to that level of detail? I know the Weldon Cooper does population projections, but are they predicting that level of like households without cars, households with disabilities?
You probably have to do some sort of like trend analysis.
Right.
Yeah. And then the other question I have is that question about, or the information about Goochland, maybe wanting more Richmond-based transit services. Did you see any information about like maybe in Nelson County, one of the things that kept coming up when we were doing some of our work is there was this interest in like maybe having Lynchburg based, but was that a specific question that was posed to Goochland or did that come out in other areas?
Well, it came out in other areas too. We looked at Nelson because one
Okay.
could argue that Lynchburg, or even Waynesboro might have a gravitational pull
Mm-hmm.
for Nelson. Based on the LED HD commuting patterns, I mean, I think it was still predominantly Charlottesville and Albemarle
Okay.
for the employment. It's like, don't quote me on this, 30-70, like Albemarle, Charlottesville versus Lynchburg. I mean,
So is it mostly focused on commute, like trip demand or?
not really.
Okay.
But we're just looking at driving patterns.
Okay.
Based on LEHD and, I guess you can, most of that is based on employment. So you have to use that as a proxy, I think,
Right. Okay.
or what other, I guess if you really want to look at it, you need to see where people are coming to, like UVA hospital.
Right.
And are they, well, come from all over the country, but regionally, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, resource constraints, some in the level of analysis we can actually do.
Yeah, no, I was just curious if you, so, if the data showed some other things or that was maybe like a feeling that wasn't necessarily validated with data. And then I guess my other question is, well, I don't know, maybe I want to ask you the question over now.
It's all right.
No, I was just gonna ask, like, how are you planning to use this document? Like, is this something you're gonna take back to the localities to?
Yeah, well, we're rolling it out now. I think that it's important that localities see this. I mean,
Mhm.
this is a study that was done by Dr. Madsen. And the findings, I looked at Mike and we're like, well, it's kind of, I could have told you that,
Yeah.
kind of findings, but it's good that he did it, and not us, right?
Sure.
So I just leave it there at that in terms of making the case for there is a latent demand in your jurisdiction. There are people who do need it. And yes, that's the basic use of it.
Yeah.
You see, take us back to your local elected officials or whoever. If I know the people we talked to in Nelson, they've been working with their board of supervisors to encourage higher levels of service. You have to have the political will to do this, and in this day and age of increasingly, like we're coming up to the COVID cliff in terms of a lot of funding from that, maybe coming to a close and looking a little bit of a fiscal cliff, and there's gonna be a lot of competition for, dollars, public dollars between health, education, law enforcement, schools. It's like transit. So.
Yeah.
What do you got, Chuck?
Mine was just, you're looking at coming up with the demand, right? Versus the solutions. Mine's more on the solutions part and how we can incorporate that into long range planning. More like a trunk line with circulators coming off of it. I know you talked about that along the Greene corridor, but I was thinking it along the 64 corridor.
Well, yes, 64 corridor does run through the whole region, 29, 64, 15, 20. We spend a lot of time on 64, by the way. You see our buses are all over 64 because we up and down through Fluvanna, Louisa, Zions, moving over to Nelson. So I think that if you serve any of these areas, we're gonna be using 64 more. That's what you're getting at in terms of travel demand management.
Yeah, my thoughts are if we can have transfer stations like at park and ride lots at the interchanges, and then you can run circulators from the interchanges to out into the rural areas. I think that might be a better utility, and then we could run the services continuously on 64, and then you could run the circulators however often you needed to do it to service the localities.
Yeah. I think we're excited about the Crozet Park and Ride that's coming up, right?
I mean, that's been my thoughts the whole time that I've been working here is how can we make this happen? And I'm starting to get the park and ride lots in, and we're going to look at Teal with the 118 project. So we're going to try to keep pushing them to get those built, and then we can just run connectors out from those out into the localities. And once you get in like 118 and 121 and 5th Street and 250 on the east end, just find park and ride lots. Even on 250, we're looking at that. On the east end, we're looking at a park and ride lot right there at Peter Jefferson Parkway. So, I mean, we're going to try to put those in there, and they're basically designed to accommodate transit vehicles so they can just loop through there, pick up people or drop off people, and then go back out.
Awesome. Yeah. So, in the urbanized area, the fixed route CAT systems will definitely provide that. We can link the CAT systems. Again, that's not our purview, but for commuters in more rural areas, I would imagine that there is a demand. Even the Afton Express, which we don't operate, CSPDC does. Well, some of them. They're probably looking at that Crozet parking lot as a really helpful thing.
Yeah, they are planning to stop there, yes.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I was trying to think of. It's just coordinating the routes, and it's coming up with a way to run the service along the 64 corridor. And then sort of like what they did with that route coming over from Waynesboro. If we could do something in this district that's similar to that, run it from Zion's Crossroads all the way to Crozet, along the 64 corridor, then you could run your routes from those locations out to the rural areas. I mean, I think that's might be a good way to look at it, setting up the plan moving forward.
Thanks for that suggestion, Chuck.
As long as we can loop 64th through Nelson and Greene County, we'll be okay with that.
Yeah, I know. That's out of my purview. We have to look at 29 for that one. But that doesn't even help Nelson.
Any other questions or takeaways from this?
Did you have a breakdown, maybe a more detailed question for later, but a breakdown of the urban and the rural area of Albemarle County, kind of the ridership? breakdown?
Yeah, I think.
And I guess where the most demand is coming from, is it coming from the urban areas, including Crozet, or is it coming from the rural areas?
I think he broke it down by census tract, in terms of the rides per capita. He did not give me any of the GIS files. All he has is the maps and the
Okay.
PDF report.
Well, I think in Albemarle, it's gonna be, the rural areas are gonna be on demand, right? And
Yeah.
And then the urban areas are gonna be on the CAT system.
The CAT system or
Right.
micro transit.
Oh, yeah.
Let me, see what this map shows, tells us again. So that's total trips per capita, fiscal year 2023. Again. More trips per capita, Southern Albemarle, obviously Crozet, Esmont. Charlotte, let's see,
Okay.
again, up 29.
Yeah, so 29 corridor for the most part, and then 255-64.
And some of these, trips per capita are also high some places, not just because of density, but because there's more service provision. There, it's really a dance between the level of service and the population that transit normally serves.
Okay.
Said, and that's what Jeremy's model, I don't run the model, he's using statistical analysis, R-squared, things like that, he's
Yeah.
come up with sort of general rules of thumb, thresholds per capita per demographic. So,
I can be, deeper
Yeah.
dive for later.
look at the report, we can talk, you know, if you wanna. We know we have everything geocoded, everything. With start point, end point, X, Y, so if you even wanna look at, you know, the demand response, where people are coming from, who's using it.
What other recommendation for micro transit and Crozet, so, I'm not on the team that works with VIA to run that whole program pilot. But it'd be interesting to see kind of the viability, actually, what would it look like, would it just be like an inter-Crozet kind of connectivity, or would it be like an express service? It's like, you go from whatever it is, downtown Crozet to UVA or to West Main, and just back and forth, it just paints,
Right.
essentially, like, most of the day, it's just a van or two that just paints back and
Going
forth.
back and forth, so that's, it's complicated. They came up with 3 scenarios,
Mhm.
and it's complicated a little bit because our services are sometimes, so we have the commuter routes, we have a few different routes, the link Crozet to urban. And microtransit typically is, well, not typically, often is used as like a catchment area to service people that last mile.
Yeah.
To get people to funnel into that fixed route, to get them to use that. The consultants looked at really the Ivy corridor and said, what if we just did demand response, draw a circle around the intense areas of Crozet, just a long thing. And we wouldn't, that service it'd drop them off in Charlottesville.
Yeah.
Like either the hospital or
Yeah.
somewhere in JPA, I don't know, the most heavily used stops. And it would come back, but it would primarily service that polygon. So there's a polygon that looks like that. And it's a little hard to replicate the link services, because the link services are not that zip back and forth. They are in the morning,
Yeah.
this is demand response, or in the morning, out in the afternoon. And that, to replace that with just like an Uber type service, it's not really apples to apples.
Yeah, no, I'm trying to think like how we just, so that it's not just purely commuter, it's like, you know, you could theoretically hop on at noon from Crozet, go to the hospital for an appointment, and like, let's say every hour, you know, 12:01,
You could-
a bus will be here at every hour, bell on the hour, they'll just bring you back and forth, it goes from like that 10-hour, it goes from 8 AM to 6 PM or whatever, like that, just kind of wondering, but yeah, that's more for the requirement later.
The nature of microtransit is it doesn't work once you start to get
Yeah.
to rural. It really needs to be, draw a circle around an area of activity,
Yeah.
intensity, and it works great there.
Mhm.
You're just sort of ping-ponging around within that
Mhm.
bubble. That's why it's useful, pad tops or 49 North. We're looking at it maybe for ADA service in the urbanized area of Charlottesville.
Okay.
That'd be a good use for it. Potentially. But it's exciting. It's also, a lot of people are playing with it. Sometimes microtransit has actually replaced fixed routes
Mm.
in some places where it's been implemented well.
Definitely think it's nice to see kind of some of these different pieces come into play, and with some of the different studies, you can kind of really look at what might work best in one area as opposed to another. You can kind of make those distinction or make the distinguish, between the service and the population it's serving. I think having that multitude of options through the studies is helping put the pieces of the puzzle together. I'm interested a lot in the commuter data, so we will also be talking.
Yeah, the commuters. Interesting. I mean, people who use Connect, again, the Connect routes come into downtown, a lot of people go by Water Street, Transit. UVA is our biggest on-off. We'll stop at the McDonald's and Barracks. But each of those Connect routes is serving a rural community. It's Nelson, Buckingham, Fluvanna, and then Crozet, 29 North, so there's 4. I'm curious, expanding to Greene would kind of almost make sense in the 29 North, I bet there's employees up there, right if you look at the people living in Greene, a lot of them are right on the Albemarle border. A lot of them, it's bedroom community for employment here.
60%.
So that would be a logical expansion over time. And then we've also heard, from some riders in Crozet, especially the hospital, accommodating sort of the long shifts and the evening shifts. It's hard. I mean, that means we have to have people in service much later. So yeah, we've heard there's a need for it. But it's just really, resource constraint. It's hard to provide that. I'd imagine.
Right, if only. Well, thank you again.
Yep, thank you. All right, safe streets for all.
Thank you. My name is Greene. I'm the regional planner at the TJPDC, currently supporting the Charlottesville Albemarle MPO Technical Committee. Next to me is Sarah Simba. She is also working on Move Safely Blue Ridge with me. I'll start with a brief overview of the project. So Move Safely Blue Ridge is the region's plan to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries for all road users, no matter their choice of transportation. This is a regional project, so it covers the counties within the TJPDC jurisdiction, Greene, Louisa, Fluvanna, Nelson, Albemarle, and the city of Charlottesville. Next slide, please. The grant comes from the Safe Streets and Roads for All federal program, which supports the United States Department of Transportation National Roadway Safety Strategy. The long term of the goal of this initiative is to reduce traffic fatalities and serious injuries by zero using a safe system approach. Slide please. The collection of the data for this comprehensive safety action plan comes from the Virginia Department of Transportation, and it is based on 13 emphasis areas. Examples include roadway departure, speeding, impaired driving, not wearing a seatbelt, and others. Next slide, please. I'd like to note that these emphasis areas are the factors contributing to roadway fatalities and serious injuries, and they correspond with each other. What that means is that if someone under the influence had a roadway departure and was not wearing a seatbelt, they will fall in all three categories. The data covered in this plan is from 2018 to 2022. Slide please. Safety action plan includes several key components to which we are committed. These include strong leadership commitment, an oversight group for development and monitoring, thorough safety data analysis, active public and stakeholder engagement, and an inclusive planning process. We also prioritize evaluating processes and policies, identifying key projects and strategies, and maintaining ongoing monitoring and reporting to ensure continuous improvement. Next slide, please. The total funding for this project amounts to a little bit over $1 million, from which 857,000 are from the Federal Highway Administrations and 214 as local match contributed by the 6-member jurisdictions. This comprehensive funding structure supports various regional components assessed on per capita basis, ensuring equitable distribution aligned with each jurisdiction's scope of work. I'm just going to mention a few of the localities. I'm going to probably skip for most of the city of Charlottesville because I don't think we have any representative in this meeting. For Albemarle, the specific components amount to 84,000 from which 33,000 are for public engagement. Then Fluvanna, Greene, Louisa and Nelson have specific components of 72,000 each, with a 33% allocated for public engagement. Next slide, please. The solution for this safety action plans are integrated across the 4E system approach. That is designing safer facilities for all users through engineering, building a culture of traffic safety through education, reinforcing safe travel behaviors through enforcement, and saving lives through rapid response. Next slide, please. The process overview is divided into 4 steps. The first step is identifying issues and opportunities. During spring of this year, we completed the first step through extensive public engagement. We conducted a survey that allowed residents of the jurisdictions to share their specific transportation safety concerns. Next slide, please. The next slide, I'll talk about a little bit more about the activities to date. So in addition to the survey, we held 6 in-person public meetings, 1 in each jurisdiction, and 1 virtual public meeting for all jurisdictions. We also organized 21 pop-up events across the jurisdictions, which included farmers market and our other festivals within the localities. We also conducted 6 site visits, 1 per jurisdiction, where we observed and collected data from various locations based on the high injury network. Next slide, please. The data from the survey, I'm not going to go specifically for each county. I do have some slides that are in the presentation specific to the locality. You're more than welcome to look at those, but I'm just going to give a brief overview of the survey results. So we got around 300 plus survey responses, We learned that driver behavior is a concern. Over 60% of the respondents disagree or strongly disagree that people drive safely in the region. The respondents want safe facilities for all users. And 46% of them mentioned a need for additional sidewalks and bike lanes in the survey. But once we completed the survey and we will move to round 2 of engagement. After that is gonna be it will be step 3, which is development of targeted safety strategies based on the identified priorities in collaboration with the jurisdictions. This strategy will serve as a foundation to the final step, which is the development of the comprehensive safety action plan. Slide, please. Page 31, full there. I'm gonna skip all the slides that cover the survey data for each jurisdiction.
That too far?
No, it's
Okay.
2 more, I think.
Start there?
1 more. 1 more.
I had a feeling that the page numbers were not lining up exactly. Yeah, all right.
No, I'm sorry, go back up. More. All the counties. 1 more. Yep, that's it. Thank you. Sorry about that. The high injury network roadway segments is with a disproportionately high number of severe crashes. For example, in our region, 70% of fatal and serious injury crashes occur on just 6% of the total roadway mileage. The analysis break roadways into 0.1 mile segments, and sliding window analysis evaluates 0.5 mile segments to assess the crash data. Each jurisdiction has a customized approach to identify high injury segments, which we will look in the next slides. Next slide, please.
Sorry.
Okay, thank you. The terms, so I'm not sure if you can see them because the screen is a little bit small, but there is data showing of 3KA, 2KA, 3KAB, and 2KAB criteria. So the terms 2K and 3KA refer to different criteria used to classify the severity of the high injury network or the severity of crashes of the high injury network. Here's what they generally mean. So 2KA crashes includes K, fatal, and A, severe injury crash that involves at least 2 or more crashes within a segment. This represents a broader, more inclusive network where more crashes are counted. The 3KA crashes includes K, fatal, and A, severe injury crashes, but limits the focus to 3 or more crashes within a segment. This represents a more narrowly defined network focusing on areas with a higher concentration of severe crashes. The same goes for 2 or 3KAB crashes, but in this case, the B is referring to minor injuries. With this being said, 3KA is a smaller subset of high injury areas, indicating more precise locations with very frequent and severe crashes, while 2KA is a broader set of locations with slightly less stringent crash frequency criteria. Slide please. Just want to mention, I'm gonna go through each jurisdiction just to specify that that criteria. So the 2KA crashes for Charlottesville cover 7% of the roadway, but account to 72% of crashes, and the 3KA covers 3% of roadway, but still accounts for 47% of crashes. The reason why I'm focusing only on 2KA and 3KA because of the goal of the plan is to reduce fatalities and serious injuries by 0. We can go to yeah, thank you. For example, Fluvanna County, we have 3KAB covers 5% of the roadway and accounts for 47% of the, I'm sorry, 74% of the crashes. And then 2KAB, sorry, I have those the opposite. So 2KAB covers 11% of the roadway and covers 74% of the crashes, while 3KAB covers 11% of the roadway and 74% of the crashes. Next slide, please. We will look at the example for Greene County. In this case, 2KAB crashes cover 12% of the roadway, but then account for 83% of the crashes. And then 3KAB covers 8% of the roadway, but accounts for 74% of the crashes. In the example of Louisa, we have 2KA covers 4% of the roadway and accounts to 56% of the crashes. And 3KAB covers 8% of the roadway and accounts for 62% of the crashes. In the example of Nelson County, 2KAB covers 6% of the roadway and accounts for 75% of the crashes. And 3KAB covers 4% of the roadway and accounts for 59% of the crashes. So overall, the jurisdictions have, every jurisdiction has the same problem, which is the reason for this comprehensive safety action plan. With this, I think that the ultimate goal has to be reached because safety is a #1 priority for everyone. So I do want to thank everyone for their partnership on this project, and for helping us achieve that goal. I'm going to talk about a brief overview of the plan and the development process. So we have 4 segments of the plan development, which is collecting and analyzing data, conducting site visits, prioritize strategies and projects, draft and review the safety action plan. So this is supported by 3 rounds of engagement, which in the first round of engagement, we identified values, issues, and opportunity through the survey. On round 2, we will collaborate on strategies and priorities. And then round 3, we will be providing feedback on the safety action plan. That be including the public and the jurisdictional leadership. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and if there are any questions, we're happy to answer them.
Do you recall, Lauren, this is all based on the 2018 to 2023 5-year data? Is that
2018 to 2022.
to 2020? Okay.
Or, yeah.
The 5-year data.
And just a reminder that there was a copy of the presentation, so if you wanted to look at the maps a little bit closer, you have a copy, and we're also happy to provide, something for you as well.
I have one other detailed question, I'm sorry. The 3 KA crashes on the maps, are those incorporated in the 2 KA? Like, are they distinct from each other? Or like if there were 3 crashes, are those included in the 2 crash amounts? Do you get what I'm asking?
Yes.
Okay.
They are
Okay.
incorporated, but
Okay.
based on the segments of the high injury network. is how they were reported, I guess.
Okay.
VDOT.
You can see the two K, when you click on it, you can click them on and off. So I think the two K obviously are included in,
And the three K,
and, but then.
oh, the 3KA are included.
Then you get the expanded area, the larger network comes up when you
Yeah.
click on both of them.
While we were attending site visits, I'll give an example in Louisa County for, when we were looking at the high injury network map.
Mhm.
On the same road at the same spot, there was a fatality, a serious injury and perhaps a minor injury. So,
It didn't overlap.
I guess this is like a general question for all the localities, because I'm looking at the maps and stuff, and Albemarle's 2KA and 3KA. And it looks like a checkerboard pattern almost, of just like 2 to 3 to 2 to 3 to 2 to 3. Do you know how, especially for the segments where I'm looking at, I see examples of this on 29 South going towards Nelson, where you have, it could be like a mile or two between the 3KAs, do you know how that's gonna be kind of dealt with, or gonna kind of try to aggregate or average data, or try to just simplify so we don't have these weird gaps in a weird checkerboard?
Honestly, I'm not sure on the top of my head right now, but I can definitely follow back on that question and.
Well, I think the planning is broken down based on intersections and road segments
Yeah.
that are the more dangerous. So the actual data that drives the planning and the segments that are gonna be chosen is segregated out. I mean, Sarah probably has a better explanation than that, but.
No, I was gonna say Erica and Jessica, she's not here today. Yeah, might have a better answer. I have nothing to add to that, Jim. That was very well said. But to your question related to Albemarle. Literally refer to Jessica, which was also in that meeting. We studied Albemarle.
Okay.
The criteria there.
Sounds good, I'll look them up at her.
No, I mean,
She
just,
loves- no, no, she loves
yeah,
it.
sincerely,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's
that's
a
so
good
plain and
point.
simple.
That's a good point.
For,
I
yeah.
appreciate that.
Does anybody else have any other questions?
I mean, I feel like I was mumbling, but just to repeat what I was saying, clearly it would be easier to refer to Jessica because she was in the meeting where TJPDC and Kilmy were discussing those criteria.
Okay,
And these people in that meeting, there was someone from VDOT, Albemarle, and they decided on which criteria to go by.
yeah,
And Jim obviously enriched your response.
I sat in on the meeting with them,
Okay.
picking the locations in Greene, and it was based on the more dangerous or
okay,
crash inflicted segments and intersections. Most of them were intersections, some were just
Yeah.
dangerous parts of the road.
yeah, I mean, obviously I can't really tell from the map because I can't zoom in and get granular enough, but I'm just- yeah, I guess I'll have to do a deeper dive, but no, I appreciate the answer.
I will point out that especially for fatalities, we can't predict where fatalities are going to occur because they're very random. And that could have a significant impact on the score. So we looked at 5 years of data, but if you look at a different 5 years, they could shift a little bit just because of the nature of the serious and fatal injuries being not as easy to predict.
But it's just like, a project in Smart Scale 2 years ago may not score as well as this year. All right, well, thank you. Does anybody else have any last minute questions for safe streets and roads for all? Does the TJPDC have any cleanup items before we go into roundtable?
No, we can go.
I think that well, we've kind of moved on to in-person public meetings because we did not have as much success as we wanted to. I feel like it was very hard to have the public show up on those meetings. So for round 2, I think we'll focus on pop-up events where, for example, there's already something planned in the jurisdiction, but we will coordinate with the the organizer of the event, to make sure that we can attend and, promote safety that way.
I look forward to it. All right, I'll start roundtable. The Louisa County, the Planning Commission is currently working on their focus areas for the growth areas that we have in our future land use map. We are working on doing some ordinance cleanup. Everywhere from, well, it's all over the code. Let's put it that way. And we're still staying busy. That's all I got for Louisa.
The biggest thing going on in Greene is, we have a round 2 smart scale project that, Greene is going to locally administer. We were working through the process with VDOT. We're looking to bring on a firm to be our project manager that has, VDOT local administration experience. So we're working through that process. Point being is, as we discussed earlier, 60% of our citizens drive south to Albemarle, Charlottesville for work every day. And for this key road, local administration gives us control over the project, and allows a lot of our key residents to be able to turn left on the 29 to get out, as opposed to having to turn north and do a U-turn. So that's one of the goals that we have out of local administration.
I think over Albemarle, we are still looking for AC 44. I think it was last week that the team went to the planning commission to kind of talk about land use management. I would definitely refer to that meeting, or refer to that team for more information. I'm just, of course, kind of happened after looking in. 3-notch, we are going to release who the consultant is later. Well, I can't speak on that right now, but that's going to be coming soon. And that's the main thing for Albemarle.
Our remote sound.
Yeah.
Who wants to go next?
I guess I will from Fluvanna. First of all, I actually have with me on the line Trey Walton. He is our new planner / GIS technician. He's been with us a little less than 3 months, and kind of want to let him get a feel for what this committee is all about. So Trey, if you just want to wave. So what we've done in Fluvanna County, a couple things. One is we recently adopted a quick update of our 2015 comprehensive plan. It basically was the 2015 plan with updates to just 3 sections. It was to keep us in compliance with state code. We are about to go into a full update of our comprehensive plan, and I've already met with Sandy and Chuck on transportation requirements. And I've also had a discussion with staff there at TJPDC. You mentioned ordinances, Tom. We're in the same boat where you are constantly seeing things or ordinances that need to be changed. In fact, we had public hearings for 3 zoning text amendments coming up in next month, and we'll probably have a couple more after that. Just so everybody knows, it's public information. We have public hearings in November for both the Planning Commission and the board. We are looking at doing away with rural cluster subdivisions, so stay tuned on that. As far as transportation projects, we are looking at a couple of possible TAP submissions next year, still trying to flesh out whether we want to do that or kind of go our own way. They're basically are continuations of streetscape projects, one in Fork Union and one in the Palmyra Village.
Thank you.
I'll give a quick update for RideShare. We should be receiving the first full draft of the commuter assistance program 5-year strategic plan in the next month or so. I'm sure we will be reaching out for feedback on that from folks. And we are also currently participating with DRPT in a statewide promotion for their Connecting Communities campaign, as well as a fall into a new commute, where we're encouraging folks new users to sign up for the app, where they can look for carpool matches or do trip planning as well as trip logging. And if folks log a trip, for each one, they get entered to win a $100 gift card, in addition to the regular monthly drawings that we do. So just trying to think of some new ways to reach folks in some areas. But that's all for RideShare at the moment.
I didn't want to go with leave your old community.
Well, you know what? I'm gonna write that down for next year.
Walking can be counted at the RideShare stuff?
I think you can log, yeah, I think you can log your walk trips, absolutely, yeah. Anything that takes a car, a single occupancy vehicle off the road counts in some way.
Basically what I do now, right, like once a week, I think.
Awesome. You're a perfect customer then. VDOT folks wanna go?
The only things that I think we, can generally update you all on is we are starting our next round of, stars and pipeline studies. Those are probably, going to be mostly focused, in the urbanized areas. That's where the highest, safety issues are for this region. But, one of the things we're looking at is maybe a park and ride lot at exit 118. 129, which would hopefully support some of the rural commuters coming along those ways. And then otherwise, we held all of our meetings to talk about the upcoming transportation alternatives and revenue sharing grants. So we'll continue to coordinate with anybody at the localities that are interested in submitting those applications. I believe that VDOT has requested for us to support your application development for the Culpeper district. Sorry, Dylan, to let us know by mid-November at the latest. Anything else, Chuck, that you want to add?
That pretty much covers it. All these new studies are gonna keep us real busy over the next year. Yeah, just let us know from a TAP and revenue share perspective, which guys are looking at. We're trying to make sure we finalize all those locations so we can get the walkthroughs done by sometime in November at the latest. So we can get started on putting together those application material for you guys for the spring.
Just a quick clarification question, anytime in November or any specific date by the end of November or?
Well, I think we wanted to know just the locations you're interested in by November 15th.
Okay.
I believe that's at least.
Correct. I mean, most of them we're getting in ahead of time because we're trying to schedule walkthroughs on the projects before the weather turns, and we want to try to get those in as soon as possible.
So for Lynchburg, kind of small updates. We have one project going in through Smart Scale for Nelson County, and that's the Route 151 and Tam Park Drive roundabout. And speaking of 151, we just got the final report for the corridor study. So that study should be wrapping up pretty soon. Other than some minor wording changes, should be done. That's it for Lynchburg.
Anything else from TJPDC staff? And I think Dylan had to, she sent a message she had to drop off, so we missed out on the Nelson update, but I'll be sure to reach out to her if there's anything she needs to update the group on.
So real Monday, Tuesday. Well, I don't see anybody to join from the public, so I'm willing to motion to adjourn our informal meeting unless someone else has something to add. Does any y'all good on topics? I'm sorry, I forgot to ask. Are we good on topics for December or?
I have a couple that I'm still looking to get our experts lined up for. If it looks like December's not gonna work out for that, I will reach back out to the group for further ideas, but thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right, well, I'll see y'all in December. Thank you, everybody, for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Didn't have a forum.